The BallenIsles Charities Foundation is proud to be associated with these great organizations. There is tremendous amount of need beyond our gates, and we say that phrase all the time. But when you look at the organizations that are receiving money, it truly is a great deal of need beyond our gates.
This is a momentous day for us. We're giving away over $500,000 to 42 different charities that are all very, very worthwhile causes, both here in the gardens and our neighboring communities.
This year we're actually getting book sets of popular books for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students. They saw the list, they're very excited to see their books and to start reading.
And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank BallenIsles and their foundation for supporting Habitat and its partnership with Seminole Ridge High School, where they support the construction of one Habitat home a year. And without the kind of support that we get from BallenIsles and other organizations, this is the 3rd year now, that project, that program just wouldn't exist.
Today is really about our 42 grant recipients. These special local nonprofits and civic organizations work very hard to help the children and families in need. These are some of the organizations that fall through the cracks, and deservedly we should be supporting them.
I want to thank the sponsors and donors, as Mark did, that allowed us to create $500,000 in giving this year and $1,765,000 in the first 6 years of the operation. We fund within 4 categories. It's civic, environmental, education, and health and human services. So of the 42 recipients this year, how do they break down? We have 2 in the civic, 17 in education, 2 in environmental, and 21 in health and human services. And to the right of those numbers, you can see the amount that adds up to $500,000. And being a former accountant, $500,220, not just $500,000. And that's all 42 organizations. I thank everybody for coming and attending. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am Mark Freeman, and it is my honor to welcome you today on behalf of the BallenIsles Charities Foundation. This year, with the overwhelming support of our residents and corporate sponsors and our dedicated volunteers and the board of directors and committee chairs of the foundation and the staff of the BallenIsles Country Club and the Community Association, we are today going to award grants of $500,000, which is the amount we raised this year from our fundraising events. Thank you. A lot of people put a lot of hard work to make that happen. I want to thank our event sponsor, Ladybug Homescape. I have Glenn Ott in the back. And also, we have some representatives of our elite sponsors. Their posters are over there. They all support us, and we appreciate their help. But today is really about our 42 grant recipients. These special local nonprofits and civic organizations work very hard to help the children and families in need. These are some of the organizations that fall through the cracks, and deservedly we should be supporting them. At this point, I'd like to turn the program over to Bob Anton, the chair of our Grants Committee, who will be going through a presentation of the organizations and the categories they fall into. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope you enjoy the program.
Thank you, Mark. And Mark is going to assist me with the presentation that I have to make it so that I just don't drone on, but you've got the ability to actually look at a screen and not look at me the entire time. We had a little glitch, but now have the president of the foundation, who's going to be my audio person, clicking the buttons for me. So, but Mark, if you could, what I'd like to do, and I know Mark just did it, but I would like to thank the board of the foundation as well for the role they allow the grants committee to play in this annual process. They give us a lot of independence, although we don't exceed it, and the board approves everything that we recommend, asking the right questions, insightful questions to organizations and so on. I want to thank the sponsors and donors, as Mark did, that allowed us to create $500,000 in giving this year and $1,765,000 in the first 6 years of the operation. I'd like to thank all the volunteers, and I go beyond the grants committee for a moment because the events that take place and the people involved in that and the chairs of the grants, chairs of the events are huge, and the amount of work that goes in. But I would like to take a moment because being the chairman of the grants committee, I would like to personally thank, and I'm going to ask each member to just stand briefly and stay standing. But members of this year's grants committee, Lana Anka, Pat Caruso, Ron Graceman, Jan Joy, Jody Passoff, Brenda Noviello, Jesse Penn, Marty Unger, and Sam Weinstein. And I can't tell you how hard they work and how much effort they put into it. Thank you very much. So, into the program. Mark said we're funding 42 organizations. Well, I think a lot of people realize, and you can see it on the website, that we fund within 4 categories. It's civic, environmental, education, and health and human services. So of the 42 recipients this year, how do they break down? We have 2 in the civic, 17 in education, 2 in environmental, and 21 in health and human services. And to the right of those numbers, you can see the amount that adds up to $500,000. And being a former accountant, $500,220, not just $500,000. But no one's going to accuse us of not being transparent with the money. Okay. I think one of the things on this slide that's particularly good for me is that in thinking about who gets the money every year and how the grants committee views it, as you can see, we have 8 new recipients this year. So these are people that have never received money from the foundation before. And on top of that, we have 7 recipients that did not receive funding last year. So 15 of the 42 organizations either are brand new or did not receive funding last year. So a little over a third of the organizations. And the reason that's so interesting to me and appealing is it really says that on an annual basis, we're measuring the grants request based on how that grant request stands up. And overall, it's not just being an organization that received funding in the past, meaning you're going to get funding again the following year. It's a matter of how that program in that year is viewed by the grants committee. So for me, that's a very important stat. Okay. So how does the money break down into the organizations? In the civic area, we have 2 organizations, and before you look at that and say it's not alphabetized correctly, it's also known as Palm Beach Gardens City Hall, which is a check actually made out to. But here we think of it as a Palm Beach Gardens Recreation Department, and they put on a BallenIsles performance series at Veterans Plaza each year, and it's open to the public, and it's within our foundation now in the giving. It allows us to contribute culturally back to Palm Beach Gardens. And we think that's a very important thing to do. When you look at some of the health and human services, it's different. We're supporting different types of organizations, but we feel this is important. The police department, I don't know how you can say anything more about the police department. What they do for Palm Beach Gardens, what they do within BallenIsles, they're on call on a consistent basis. And for our perspective, it's nice that they have grant requests that we can help support that goes beyond what the tax dollars will pay for. So thank you to the police department as well. In the environmental category, we have 2 recipients this year. We have the Bush Wildlife Sanctuary, and we have McCarthy's Wildlife Sanctuary. And I think there's a couple of things to know about each organization. One is that Bush Wildlife Sanctuary is dealing with animals that are indigenous to Southeast Florida or Southern Florida. And when you look at the picture, you'll see a picture of a panther down in the left-hand corner there. That's because there are panthers in Southern Florida. If you look to the right of that, you'll see McCarthy's Wildlife Sanctuary, and they go beyond just animals that are indigenous, but they go to exotic animals. So if you haven't been and go, you will see tigers, white tigers, a variety of these, and the most beautiful specimens you'll ever see. And when zoos can't take them, McCarthy's will take them. So that's why we're helping to support. So it's a very interesting situation. We're glad we can support both operations this year. And I think the key word is sanctuary there, because they're not zoos. They bring in injured animals, they nurse them back to health, and if they can be released back into the wild, they are. So thank you to both of those organizations. Okay, the other two sectors are education and health and human services. And let's deal with education first. I mentioned before that there were 8 new recipients this year. 4 are in the education area. And there are 17 total recipients in education. So how do they break down? Well, we have 10 schools getting grants. We have 5 after-school programs. We have a program for young disabled adults. And we have a music instrumentation program. And if you saw any pictures flash up and you saw younger children receiving instruments, that's Symphonic Band, and it's a great organization, okay? So, Mark, who is receiving funding of the 17 organizations? We have Alamanda Elementary School, and I don't know if Mary Lou Garcia was able to make it. Okay, there we are. And we have Boys and Girls Club of Palm Beach County. And the Carson Scholars Fund, which is also the Ben Carson Reading Room, was the project that we're funding. And I mentioned Alamanda the way I did because when I first had a chance to see the Carson Reading Room, it was at the Alamanda School. And it was my first glimpse to exactly what was trying to be created with the Carson Reading Rooms and the environment to nurture reading within young people. I heard a quote that day that said, "Children learn to read up to grade 3. And after grade 3, they read to learn." So if we're not teaching them how to read adequately enough, they're never going to learn adequately enough. So I found that very interesting, and as a result, we thought that the Ben Carson program, new this year, was worthwhile, very worthwhile. Okay? We have the Dwight D. Eisenhower Elementary School, First Tee of the Palm Beaches, Habitat for Humanity, Seminole Ridge White's Construction Academy program, which we funded in the past, and you'll see information on that here. Inlet Grove Community High School, and this is the second year for Inlet Grove Community High School. They were new last year. Jack the Bike Man was also new last year, and it's a second-year recipient. Kids Safe Foundation, this is new, and it's a very interesting program. It is teaching, and it's preventing. It's preventing sexual abuse, bullying, and internet or online exploitation of children. This group puts together books, pamphlets, and talks at schools about how to prevent this going forward and what people can do. So we found that to be an extremely worthwhile program because it's interesting in today's environment. All of a sudden you start talking about online or internet exploitation. I know growing up I never experienced any of that. So we found that a program that we wanted to fund this year. Palm Beach State College did not receive funding last year, but did this year. And in it, this is a scholarship program for first-generation students. So students receiving scholarship money here will be the first child in their family that will be able to go to college. Kids Safe, Pinnacle Kids. This is an organization that was started approximately 3 years ago, I believe, maybe just a little more than 3 years. But with Pinnacle Kids, there was an individual, and I haven't met him yet, but his name is Robert Restino, and if he's here, he's way in the back. He decided after visiting schools and seeing what goes on in Title I and underprivileged children, that teachers were paying money out of their pocket to fund supplies for the kids because their families couldn't afford it. So he put together an organization, Pinnacle Kids, And what he's been doing, he formed as a 501c3, and he has been raising money and then giving it back to the schools on an as-needed basis. So again, I think the other important thing with this organization, as several others, when we asked for the list of top people within the organization, he listed 3. And we also asked for salaries, and the salaries were 0. So I think it's an all-volunteer organization, which plays well. Renaissance Learning Academy, Renaissance Learning Center, both catering to autism spectrum disorder. The academy is more of the high school age children, and the center is more of the elementary age children, both doing great work locally here. Seagull Industries or Seagull Services, this is an organization that has formed a wholly owned charter school. And the charter school has 60 children, and the 60 children have learning disabilities. And in that, they can't get the proper special education through the public schools. So that's why this school was formed. They mentioned that it's middle school and high school level children or students, but from my perspective, it's also important from the standpoint that the ages are 11 through 22. So these children aren't necessarily graduating from high school at 17 or 18 years old. They can be there up till 22 with the program focused on getting them able to transition into the work environment and be independent. So another new program this year. Symphonic Band of the Palm Beaches. Again, I can't say enough about the organization and what they do for children and how and the instrument giveaway programs that they have, and they've been doing it for a number of years. Team First Pal, I don't want to say anything that isn't correct, but it's sort of the tennis version of First Tee. And it's a growing organization within Palm Beach County. We've got several people here today from that organization, and we would hope to see good things in the future from them as they continue to grow and strengthen that organization. Urban Youth Impact, we've contributed to over the years. It's an after-school mentoring program that has been extremely successful, and they do so in the highest crime area in Palm Beach County. But yet their success rate is phenomenal. So those are the grant recipients from the education side of it. On the Health and Human Services side, again, we have 4 new recipients. So 4 in education, 4 in Health and Human Services. Total number of recipients, 21. And in here, we have 4 programs to feed the hungry. We have 4 programs to clothe children. 4 programs for children who have been removed from their homes. 3 programs to assist mothers and infants. A program to provide dental care for children. Program to assist Alzheimer's patients. Supply medical equipment to children. And if you look up to the right-hand corner from where you're sitting, you'll see Cole Gottlieb and his mother Jennifer. And Cole is using a pediatric adaptive stroller, which is the program that we're funding this year. We went to see it again this year, and it's interesting. You learn something all the time, and you think you have one pediatric adaptive stroller, but they have to have more because children grow. And as a result, strollers have to grow with them. So again, if you have a chance to say hello, please do, okay? To provide a program to provide trained service dogs to veterans. We have 2 dogs with us today. We have Tanker, and we thought Sunny, but it's Ezra, if I have that correct. But beautiful dogs, and if you have a chance to say hello, because we also have one of the veterans here, and thank you so much for everything you do. We have a program to support children, families with children in the hospital, and it's a little bit, it doesn't always have to be the hospital, unfortunately, under this program, but we'll talk more about that. And we have a program to support music and art therapy for severely disabled children. Okay. So, who is getting the money? We have some organizations here that are very familiar to the foundation. Adopt a Family, the Alzheimer's Community Care. We have a new one, Back to Basics. And Back to Basics is one of the programs that clothes children. And what Back to Basics does is they buy school uniforms, shirts, pants, socks, underwear, sneakers, and they buy it in bulk. So we liked it because there was a lot of bang for the buck, so to speak, in what they could provide children for the amount of money that they were requesting. Great organization, and they're new for us this year. Carrot Ed Center, Center for Child Counseling, which is new. And I think if you take the statistic of, on average, there are 50 children under the age of 6 that are removed from their homes every month in Palm Beach County for either abuse or neglect. When they are, they're then taken to the next organization down, which is ChildNet, which has now been contracted with Palm Beach County to process the children to determine how they will move on from that point. What Center for Child Counseling does is they provide the analysis, or the, I gotta find the right word, but they look at it to determine what the child needs emotionally and their mental health stability so that they can understand better where to place them. For children under the age of 6. So this was a program that we looked at and said, this should be one we fund as well. ChildNet, even though they're contracted with Palm Beach County to process children that could be entering the child welfare system, the grant request this year has been to fund a project that they have which is called Safe Place. So that when a child is removed from their home, at any time during the night or during the day, these children aren't kept in a car or in limbo, so to speak. They will now be able to move to Safe Place where they have a nurturing surrounding and then can be processed appropriately by the Center for Child Counseling. So again, it was a program that we looked at and will continue to look at in the future because it seems to make sense to us. Okay? The Children's Home Society of Florida, Clinics Can Help, who I mentioned earlier with Cole, Feed the Hungry, Grandma's Place, who we funded a number of years and is also a recipient of children that are taken from their homes. And again, it's another prospect that we like. Okay, children are very emotional when you deal with this type of issue. Gratitude House and the Hacer Food Pantry. Going down the list, Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. National Council of Jewish Women of the Palm Beaches, which is, again, in their second year of funding with us. Another all-volunteer organization. Palm Beach County Food Bank. Palm Beach Harvest, which is also in their second year of funding. Pause for Liberty. And again, we mentioned Sunny and Ezra here. So if you have a chance, please stop by and say hello. Pediatric Oncology Support Team, POST. This is a new organization for us, and the worst words a parent can hear are, your child has cancer, and second, there are no available treatments. This organization deals with that issue, and they deal with that issue to help the parents and the children through that process. It's an amazing process to me. It's an organization that I don't think anybody in the committee had really heard about before their submittal this year, but in reading through their information, they also do receive an annual grant from the Dana-Farber Institute in Boston. So as a leading cancer research center, they obviously see value here in helping the families through this procedure. So again, another new organization that we think a lot of. The Arc of Palm Beach County, the Children's Healing Institute, and the Jacob Zweig Foundation, also in their second year of funding. So Jacob Zweig also has some information here, and if you can ask any questions of any of the 4 groups that are displayed here. I think in closing, the BallenIsles Charities Foundation is proud to be associated with these great organizations. There is tremendous amount of need beyond our gates, and we say that phrase all the time. But when you look at the organizations that are receiving money, it truly is a great deal of need beyond our gates. Once again, Thank you to all the sponsors and donors and volunteers for making this year such a success. It was more than we thought possible. But I also have to thank everybody in this room from the 42 organizations for the great work you do for the community. Okay? Thank you very much.